Hi everyone, this is Screencast number 1. I'd like to show you today an exercise from the Magento. It's like a preparation kit, like a study guide to prepare for the Magento developer certification. And it's got different sections on request flow, basics. It's got the whole rendering layout stuff. There's the ORM, EAV, admin HTML, what have you. So it's quite nice. Um, it's got it kind of um, gives a gives you some questions to think about, and it also has an exercise part to each section. So the exercise today that I want to show you is the one in request flow. The second one, the question or the brief is that you have to create an observer to redirect the visitor to the base URL if the CMS home page URL key is accessed directly. So the CMS home page key is home, right? When I explicitly put that key. So I'm just working on a Magento 1.7 community edition here that I got installed locally. So if you hit home, you go onto the home page, and that's because the CMS router kicks in, handles this request, and actually transforms it into CMS page view ID, and then the ID of the actual the home page ID, which if you go to CMS pages, um, that will be this page. This page is saved in the database. Of course, it's got a primary key. That key is used to pick up that page. But of course, we want a nice URL, so we'll use we use an identifier instead. So what the exercise says is that we have to redirect this here. And you might think, well, this is already pointing to the home page. So that that is just the way Magento's set up. It's not necessarily that way. Basically, what Magento does is when it doesn't have a request URI, so there's no path info, it will look up for a default route, and that's set in the admin. If you go to uh, system configuration, and then you go to web, and then you've got default pages here. So here it's set in a stock install, a vanilla install Magento, it's set to CMS, so that's the front name of the root, the default root. This could be, you could just add index to that. You can add whatever you want there, but by default it's set just to CMS, which is the root name. The front name actually of the CMS module, so that way you'll get through to the CMS controllers. I've got a little tooltip extension that I created. I'll show you another screencast how you can install it. It's on GitHub. I like it because that way I can quickly look for that config key in the code and see where it's used. So basically, then this one is the really interesting one. That's the CMS home, the default one, CMS homepage. Um, so that's set to homepage, but we can set it to anything. So if you look in the code, um, so it will look for the default route, which would be CMS, and then that would go through to this controller and this action. And you can see right here where it uses this config setting. So this one here, just hover over it, we got a web default CMS homepage. That gets the page ID, and then the CMS page just renders that page. So that doesn't have to be the home page. That could be basically anything else. So if we set it to about us, um, then if we go to the home page and hit this, it will be redirecting to the about us page. You could, in theory, um, yeah, change it to anything. This setting is saved in the database. Um, so what we need to do is, in terms of the exercises, have home, which is picked up by the CMS module, because that's a root. Well, that's an identifier. That's a URL key. So it knows which page to render, but we have to redirect that to um, the default, the base URL. Okay, so that's what we're going to try to do. First things first, I use a lot a utility called N98 MageRun, which is really nice. I love it because I'm using command line a lot anyway, and this tool, you can get it from GitHub, and it's got a nice description on how to install it and which features it gives you, and it's updated quite often. Um, so it's really, if you like the command line, you'll love this tool. And during the screencast, I'll use it a couple of times. You can see some cool things you can do with it. I've aliased it though to MR because I type it so much, so that would be mage run. And there we go. We've got all the settings there. So one of the things that I usually do when I develop is mage run cache, and if you don't put in anything, it gives you a nice list of things. So in this case, we'll say, well, we don't want to run cache. Secondly, one of the things I'll do if I'm developing, and this is, I really think if you're doing any sort of Magento development, this should be on. If I were to go to look at my vhost for this instance, so sites available would be Mage 17. Go all the way down here. This one, just put Mage's developer mode on. Put it on so that any sort of PHP error, not an exception, but an actual error, so notice, a warning, not a fatal error, you can't catch that, but any of the other ones, Magento will throw them as exceptions if Mage is developer mode is on, and it will also output a stack trace. I really think any developer should have that setting on. So now we've got that. Let's get started with the module. To do actually to solve this this exercise, you need to create a module. I mean, everything in Magento is a module, but creating a module takes a bit of work, like how do you say that, grunt work. It's just a bit, in a way, if you do a lot of Magento development, it becomes a bit boring to do it over and over again. So Mage Run comes with a nice little shortcut to do that. Let me just see, it's def, I think, module create. So mr def module create. Now let's see what it tells us. It kind of gives us like the arguments that we should use. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say add all, and then the other ones I'll just leave out for now. And then the vendor namespace, that would be I'm just going to call it Redbox Digital. That's the company I'm working for right now, so I'll just call it Redbox. The module name, let's just give it a bit of let's just call it request rewrite home or something. Rewrite home. That's the module name, and then the code pool, we're going to put it in local. I'm not going to explain how Magento code pools work. I mean, I kind of assume that if you're looking at the screencast, you know the difference between the community, local, and the core code pools. So there we go. Boom. That's how much effort it takes. Right now we should have under local here we go, module, and everything's in there, and the most important file, of course, that needs to be there is the config file, and the config file in app.etc modules will be there. So if we go, it should be there somewhere. Redbox, there we go. Redirect home. Okay, so we got everything in place. Our module is running. I'm not running caching, so even if I run mr, there's this thing here called system modules list, mr sys modules list. There we go. We've got it here. Redbox redirect home. It's active, so we know things are okay. So we got a module, and it's being picked up during the bootstrap. It's active. So it's gonna, we can start building more of our code to satisfy this requirement. So the interesting thing to know is that we need to create an observer. Now, if you want to create an observer, you need basically you kind of need to know what event you're gonna subscribe to. So the interesting thing is that how Magento works in terms of um, when a request comes in. Magento uses these routers. I talked about them already a little bit. There's a couple of them, and there's a really good. I think Alan Storm wrote an article on this quite well. It's routing, which is it's really good. It's a series of articles. It's quite. I mean, it takes a while to get through them, but yeah, basically, so Magento uses routers, right? And the way that they handle in that order is important. So the admin router is used first to parse a request and to dispatch. Then there's the standard one, the CMS one kicks in as well at a certain point, and then the last one would be the default one. So as you can see, there is actually a CMS uh, router that handles a request. And what kind of happens is if you just have a look at the code, if you go to Mage Core, I think it's controller front action. No, it's variant front. There we go. That's the actual piece of code that is it's called during the app run method. It's the dispatch at a certain point when all the bootstrapping is done. The request is dispatched, and the part here that's interesting is this one right here. So there's this while loop, and then the for each loop within that while loop. And what's important here is that the request, which is basically a Zen request, it's a controller HTTP request. So it gives you a nice API to work with. The HTTP request has a setting or a property called isDispatched, and then while it's not dispatched, the routers, which are picked up through configuration, but they can also be added via an event, and that's what the CMS does. The routers are looped through, and the routers match method is called. And basically, any router has kind of two responsibilities. It needs to try to match that request, and if it does, it needs to return true if it was able to match it. Um, uh, and it has to set the request is dispatched property. So this while loop can be broken out of. Can be you can break out of this loop. Otherwise, you'll keep running this loop until Magento does put an upper limit on this. Just so if there's a request that really can't be routed. So in terms of our question, it seems to be like that is a little bit related to that. I mean, it is a question request flow. So the thing is that what the place we probably need to look is in that router that handles CMS requests. So if you look at, just think you go back. Okay, let's just do Mage 17 local. Looking at this request is actually handled by, at a certain point, by the CMS router. The CMS router picks this up and says, "Hey, I've got a page for that," but then it transforms it into a normal standard route that Magento handles with the standard router, which is always in the form of a front name, a controller, which in this case would be page, and then an action, and then it kind of gives it the parameter, the ID of the page the CMS page you want to look at. But at a certain point, that router will be hit. So if we were to look at the actual router would be Mage CMS controller router. There we go. Couple interesting, it's not a big piece of code, but I mean there's two functions here. First of all, there's a match. It's a router, so it needs a match method. So you pass it the request and the router tries to match it. If it doesn't match it, returns false. And there's the init controller router. So the CMS router is actually added through an event. This is handled in an event. So when the front controller, which is the code you're looking at right here, at a certain point it builds a list of routers that it uses in the for each. That collection of routers, at a certain point you can hook into that and add your own router, and that's what the CMS does. And the way it does it is the front controller, yeah, the front controller calls, uh, fires an event, and that event is handled by this method. And basically what the CMS does is just says add router with the code CMS and adds itself to it. So that's what happens in this line of code. Okay, but then in the actual match method, if we go through this, and there's some interesting code here. So basically, let's. Why don't we just put a breakpoint here and then just fire it up and see what happens? Because we know this is going to be hit by the CMS router is going to get its hands on this. So I'm just going to hit. Just going to debug this. This previous breakpoint. Let's turn it up. There we go. So we're in the match method of the CMS router, and it's going to get the requests path info, which in this case will resolve to home, and that's what the CMS calls an identifier. And then there's some interesting stuff happening here. There's a condition object, which is a variant object, and it's got two properties, which is the identifier and continue, and then that's passed on to an event. So that's quite interesting. Okay. So here, that condition object then comes back, and then there's a check on that condition object for is there a redirect URL, and if so, which is not the case right here because there is no sort of there is nothing. Well, you know what? Let's have a look. If there's actually any sort of code in Magento that uses this event. No, it's not. So there's nothing there that actually uses this event. So, but for the purpose of our exercise, we have to do. It's quite nice. This is really what we want. We want to redirect based on a certain route. That was called, and it seems to be that the way to do it is here, because at a certain point that condition object, once it's gone through an observer, it's checked on a get redirect URL. So this kind of looks what we need. So let's try to do that. What we'll need to do first, because we're gonna be doing. Let me just finish this. It's F8, so the debugging finishes, and what we are going to do is look at our own just app code local, and then we're going here. So we're gonna have to handle that event. So the way to do that is to add a snippet of configuration in config.xml, and this is where I see a lot of people, well, some developers and even myself make the mistake where you add it in the wrong place. There's basically, Magento uses this concept of app areas, so and events kind of tie into that. So you need to make sure you put the event, your configuration, in the right app area, and this is really important here because that event, when that event is dispatched, so when you go to router here, when this happens, a lot of people will just do this because they don't completely understand how events work. So they'll go like this, and then they'll say the event name, which in this case is this one. So Yankin. No, wait, let me just. So Yankin. We go here. And then observers, and then we'll have a little red box redirect home. Let's just call it redirect base. And then here you would have your the configuration of your observer. If we do it like this, sorry, this has to be events. I'll just put that here. Just indent it. Oh, okay, so the events, and then we've got this event, and we'll have observers, and then here our observer configuration will go. This will not work, and the reason it will not work is because the app area will not be the front end app area is not at that point is not loaded yet. only the let me just show you this in Mage. Let's get an idea. So they get Mage Core Model App. So if you look at, let's not do that. If we look at run, if you look at the run method, at a certain point, you'll get this part, load area, and it only, so the app area global will be loaded. The events part will be loaded, and basically that just means that the events, there's a collection here where events are stored per area. That area will be added to that. So there, at a certain point, this add event area. This is the code that will be called. So in an array, a member array of the app, that area will be added. So it's very important that you use not front end, because this event, it won't be handled. You need to put it under global. So actually, we don't need that. We can just copy this whole thing here and then put it here. There we go. And get rid of front end. Okay, so that's where we have to put the thing so our controller will work. And then we're gonna put in the settings for the controller, for the observer, sorry. So the things you need to do is put in the class, and that's gonna be our class alias or class group name. I'm just gonna yank this here. Okay, that's not working. Okay, there we go. There we go. And then I'm going to use an observer for that, which I'm going to create now. And then the method I'm going to say is just going to be red. So let's just call it redirect base. There we go. And there's other things you can set here, like for example the type, which is singleton. Now you don't have to say it because singleton is the default, but if you don't want this instance, this object, to be considered as a singleton, Magento's got its own look on singleton. It uses the registry on Mage. So the Mage has a registry array where you can put in variables, so you don't get globals. But the default would be singleton, which is fine to use that. So you've got class, and then we got the method. Right. So next thing to do is actually create the observer. So that would go in the model. Let's just create a new PHP file here, and that would be observer, and then the class would be redbox. Redirect home model, and that will be observer. We're not going to extend anything. It's just a public function. And this then would be redirect home. And what we're getting in here is, and we'll use type hinting. So variant, what's it again? Variant event observer. Yeah, there we go. Observer. So yeah, so this is where our observer is gonna go into. What I tend to do at this point is sometimes kind of check if this works by using magelog, for example, or by just letting it die. So, and now putting it right here. So if we were now to go to if everything is working correctly, then this function should be called, and we should be able to get here. I mean, Magento does PHP is not an events and observers are not. It's not an asynchronous thing, so it should stop when I hit here, and we're getting another. See, this is the nice thing about using developer mode. You get these nice stack traces. So method redirect base is not defined. So obviously, so yeah, there we go. It has to be base. So we know that we got there already, and that is working. So that's good. So what are we getting in here? What do we got to work with? If we go back to the actual router, you'll see that we've got this That's the dispatch event, and we'll have a router and a condition. It's the condition that we kind of need. So in the observer, I'm just gonna do this. Observer get event. That's how it works. You just get that off, and then you can just access it like this. And then what we're gonna do is condition set, because the root is gonna look for redirect URL. So we're just gonna set. It's a variant object, so we can do it like this: set redirect URL, and we're going to redirect it to the base URL. So Magento's got a little get base URL method here. There we go. Now the thing is that we do only want to do this when the root was for home and not for all the other I mean for any other CMS route, because this is only going to be fired if the CMS router gets its hands on it, and the order of the routers is important. So some many cases the CMS page will not, that router won't even be evaluated in that loop which I showed you in the front the front controller. So let's just have a look. So what else are we getting? We're getting the root. We're also getting the router, which we can just say observer get event get. I think it's just router. So look again here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's see what we have to work with here. In that router, what is actually the can we retrieve what was the router's got the well, I think we can still get the request from, oh, here's the identifier, there we go. So condition router this and the condition. Okay, so the condition has, we can get the identifier of the condition. So we don't really need the router. We can just say, no, here, if condition get identifier identifier, difficult word, home, then set a yeah, that should work. Let's just give that a try and see see if everything is going well. Let's not debug, let's just run the commit. So get identifier, that's what we're getting from the router, right? Yep. And as soon as it hits here, it will stop. So then the only thing we have to do is set the redirect URL. Yeah, that should set redirect URL. That should work. Let's just test it. There we go. So yeah, home page is being redirected to the base URL. If I were to set the base URL to not about us but homepage, save that. There we go. And now we hit home again. Boom. There we go. We're on the home page. So all in all, very kind of simple way to do this. It's always good to look at the code in Magento to kind of like trace and look which events can I use, what's the best place, and it's quite nice that the CMS router actually exposes this event, and it doesn't seem to be used anywhere in Magento when I looked for this event code. But for the sake of this exercise, it's really exactly what we wanted. Now that said, there is another way to do this, which is quite simple through configuration. The other way that you could do this is just to go to catalog, URL rewrite management. If you didn't want to write code, add a well, it seems like I've still got some stuff open here, but you would just add a URL right, and you don't necessarily need to add one for category products. You could also use one custom, which you could then say, okay, foobar, whatever you want to call it, it's just an identifier. Request part would be home, and I'm rerouting it to the base URL. and then you can pick up the type of redirect that you want. Here, save that, and that would also work. So you could also do it just from config. Okay, so yeah, just a couple of reminders, important things. When you create the actual event, make sure you put it under the right area, because the front end area is only loaded. The app area is only loaded when you have when you hit the actual action controller dispatch method. That will add. So let's just go back here. So this one loads global and events. So any events that are at that point um, that are in the global configuration space will be handled. Any observers there will actually be called. Um, and the other one is in it's just a mage core controller. I think it's variant front or action. Variant action. Yeah, that's the one. So I think if it's dispatch here, maybe it's pre-dispatch. Load area. Yeah, there we go. So basically here, that's in the. It's only when the actual action controller is called that the front end app area is added or loaded. I mean, when you just say load area, it will load things like translation and events and what have you. So it's only at that point, which we do not have at this point. At this point, you're still in Magento's routing, so Magento hasn't instantiated a action controller yet. So it's important that you put this in the events section of the global area. Okay. Maybe, yeah, another thing here is that you can set a couple of things, whether you want to set it as a singleton or as a. You could even disable it here. Have a look at the dispatch event method on the app model to have a look at what other things you can set here. Okay, I think that satisfies our requirement here. If you know any better way to do it, or you think what I'm doing is wrong or whatever, I'd love to hear how you have a better solution or whatever solution you have. And yeah, I hope to record another screencast soon. See you guys. Bye.